Rain hammered the pavement as I stared down the barrel of a crooked cop's gun, his badge glinting like a mockery of justice. "You're done, Harrow," he sneered, shoving a bag of fake dope into my jacket. I didn't flinch. Years in Delta Force taught me to bury fear deep. They thought they'd framed me, buried me in their small-town corruption. What they didn't know, I wasn't alone. Behind me, engines roared. My brothers, the Iron Reapers, rolling in like a storm of steel and vengeance. This wasn't just a setup. This was war, and I'd burn their world to ash before they'd see me break. Stick around, 'cause you won't believe what happens next. The rain was a cold slap against my face, each drop stinging like a reminder of where I'd ended up. I'd seen worse, jungles in Colombia, deserts in Iraq, but nothing prepared me for this. A filthy alley in a nowhere town, staring down the wrong end of a Glock, held by a cop with a smirk that begged to be wiped off. His name was Officer Daniels, a doughy bastard with a buzz cut and a badge he didn't deserve. "You're done, Harrow," he growled, his voice thick with smugness. His partner, a wiry guy named Reese, shoved a bag of powdery bullshit into my jacket pocket. Pure theater, a frame job so obvious it'd be laughable if it wasn't my life on the line. I didn't flinch. Delta Force drills that into you. Fear's just noise, and you tune it out. My hands were steady, even as Reese yanked my wrists back and slapped the cuffs on tight enough to bite. "Found this on him," he lied to the radio, his voice dripping with fake urgency. The red and blue lights from their cruiser danced across the wet pavement, painting the scene like some cheap crime flick. They thought they had me. Jake Harrow, washed-up vet, easy prey for their small-town racket. They didn't know shit. See, I wasn't supposed to be here. I'd rolled into Mill Creek 3 days ago, chasing a lead on an old army buddy who'd gone dark. Found him all right, face down in a ditch, courtesy of these same crooked badges. I'd been tailing Daniels that night, watching him shake down some junkie behind a bar. When they spotted me, guess they figured I'd seen too much. So here we were. Me cuffed and soaked, them grinning like they'd won the lottery. The cruiser's back door creaked open, and Daniels shoved me in, his meaty hand slamming my head against the frame for good measure. "Should have stayed out of our town," he muttered. Pain flared, but I swallowed it. Anger was hotter, and it was building fast. As the car peeled out, tires squealing on wet asphalt, I caught a glimpse of something in the shadows, a glint of chrome, the low rumble of an engine. Not theirs, mine. The Iron Reapers, my ace in the hole. I'd met them years back, running security for a shipment they didn't ask too many questions about. Saved their leader, Tank, from a bullet in a deal gone south. They owed me, and I'd called that debt in the second I knew Mill Creek was rotten. They were out there now, watching, waiting. Daniels and Reese thought they were locking me up. Truth was, they'd just lit the fuse. The precinct was a squat, gray box, stinking of stale coffee and desperation. They dragged me through booking, fingerprints smudging ink across my knuckles, mugshot flash blinding me for a split second. "Possession with intent," Daniels said, loud enough for the desk jockeys to hear, like he was proud of his little script. I kept my mouth shut. Words wouldn't get me out of this. Action would. They tossed me in a cell, the clang of bars, echoing like a challenge. I sat on the cot, rain still dripping from my jacket, and let the plan take shape in my head. Step 1, get out. Step 2, make them pay. Step 3, burn their whole damn world down. The Reapers were my muscle, but this was my fight. Daniels thought he'd buried me. He didn't know I was already digging his grave. The cell was a concrete coffin, damp, cold, and reeking of piss and regret. I sat there, back against the wall, listening to the drip of a leaky pipe somewhere down the hall. It was past midnight now, the precinct quiet, except for the occasional crackle of a radio. Daniels and Reese had clocked out, leaving me with a bored guard who looked half asleep, his boots propped on a desk. Perfect. I'd been in tighter spots. Kandahar, pinned down by insurgents with nothing but a knife and a prayer. This was a warm-up. I'd already scoped the lock, standard issue. Nothing a little finesse couldn't crack. The Reapers were my backup, but I wasn't waiting for a cavalry charge through the front door. Too messy. I reached into my boot, feeling for the thin metal strip I'd kept hidden since the arrest. Old habit from the field, always have an out. My fingers brushed it, cold, sharp, just enough to work the tumblers. I slid it free and went to work, the faint clicks blending with the drip 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 of that pipe. 3 minutes later, the lock popped with a soft snick. I froze, eyes on the guard. He didn't stir. The hallway was dim, fluorescent lights flickering like they were on their last legs. I moved fast, silent, years of training kicking in, muscle memory guiding every step. The guard's keys hung on a hook by his desk. I lifted them, barely breathing, and slipped out the back exit. The night air hit me like a shot of adrenaline, rain still falling in sheets. I was free, but not clear, not yet. That's when I heard it. The low growl of engines, a sound that cut through the storm like a blade. Headlights pierced the dark, and there they were. The Iron Reapers, rolling up on matte black Harleys, water spraying off their tires. Tank led the pack, a mountain of a man, with a shaved head and a scar splitting his left eyebrow. He killed his engine, and grinned, teeth flashing under the streetlights. "Took you long enough, Harrow," he rumbled, tossing me a spare helmet. "No time for chit-chat," I said, swinging onto the bike behind him. "They'll know I'm gone by morning." We hit them before they hit back. Tank nodded, and the pack roared to life, peeling out into the night. The precinct faded behind us, swallowed by rain and shadow. I wasn't just out, I was armed now, not with a gun yet, but with brothers who'd bleed for me. Daniels and his crew had no idea the hell I was about to unleash. We rode hard, cutting through back roads until we hit an old warehouse on the edge of town, the Reapers' hideout. Inside it was all steel and smoke, bikes lined up like soldiers, weapons stacked on tables. I laid it out for them. The frame job, the murder I'd witnessed, the corruption running deep in Mill Creek's PD. Tank listened, arms crossed, then spat on the floor. "Cops like that don't deserve badges," he said. "They deserve graves." The others growled agreement. We had a plan by dawn. Gather intel, hit their stash house, turn their own game against them. Step 1 of my revenge was locked and loaded. Dawn broke gray and ugly, the kind of morning that promised trouble. We didn't waste time. Tank had a guy on the inside, a junkie snitch who'd seen Daniel's operation up close. Word was, they ran their dirty cash and dope out of an abandoned auto shop on Route 9. It was our first target, a chance to cripple their supply and send a message. I geared up, leather jacket swapped for a tactical vest, a 9mm strapped to my hip. The Reapers loaded shotguns and crowbars. This wasn't a stealth op, this was a sledgehammer. We hit the road at noon, a convoy of thunder tearing through Mill Creek's outskirts. The shop came into view, rusted siding, broken windows, a couple of beat-up sedans parked out front. 2 goons lounged by the door, smoking, oblivious. "Big mistake," Tank signaled, and we fanned out, engines cutting off half a mile back. I took point, creeping through the tall grass flanking the lot, my boots sinking into mud. The Reapers flanked wide, shadows moving like wolves. I was 10 yards out when one of the goons looked up. Too late. I sprinted, closing the gap and drove my fist into his jaw. Bone cracked and he dropped like a sack. His buddy fumbled for a gun, but Tank was on him, a meaty arm locking around his throat. "Quiet," Tank hissed, squeezing until the guy went limp. We dragged them inside, zip-tying their hands. The shop stank of oil and weed, crates stacked high with cash and baggies. Jackpot, we didn't have long. Someone would miss these clowns. I grabbed a ledger from a desk, names and numbers scrawled in messy ink. Evidence. The Reapers rigged the place with gas cans, nothing fancy, just enough to make it burn. I struck the match, watched the flame catch, and we were gone before the first plume of smoke rose. The explosion rattled the windows as we rode out, a fireball lighting up the gray sky. Daniels would feel that one in his gut. Back at the warehouse, I pored over the ledger, dates, payoffs, a whole network of filth. One name stood out, Lieutenant Carver. My old CO from Fort Bragg, retired here last year. He'd been a hard ass, but straight, or so I'd thought. If he was in on this, it wasn't just personal anymore. It was a betrayal. I crushed the page in my fist, the anger boiling over. Step 2 was coming, and it hit harder than the first. Night fell heavy, the warehouse buzzing with tension. The reapers were restless, cleaning guns, trading war stories, and had sat alone. The ledger spread out on a crate, Carver's name burning a hole in my skull. I'd trusted him, bled for him on missions where the odds were a coin toss. Now he was neck-deep in this cesspool, and I needed answers. Tank dropped a burner phone in my lap. "Call him," he said. "See what the bastard says." I dialed, the line crackling before his gruff voice picked up. "Who's this?" he barked. I didn't waste breath on pleasantries. "It's Harrow. We need to talk." Route 9. The shop. "Ring any bells?" Silence stretched, then a low curse. "You're in over your head, Jake. Walk away." He hung up. Walk away. Not a chance. He'd just painted a target on his back. We tracked him to a dive bar on the edge of town, a neon-lit dump called the Rusty Nail. I went in alone. Reapers outside, engines idling. Carver sat at the bar, nursing a whiskey, older than I remembered, gray hair thinning. He didn't look up as I slid onto the stool next to him. "You're a long way from Bragg," I said, voice low. He snorted. "So are you. What's this about?" I slid the ledger across, open to his name. His eyes flicked to it, then back to me, cold, unreadable. "You're playing cop now?" he asked. "I'm playing survivor." I shot back. "You framed me, killed my buddy. Why?" He drained his glass, set it down hard. "You think it's that simple? This town's a machine, Jake. I didn't build it, I just run it." Then he moved, fast for an old man, a blade flashing from his sleeve. I caught his wrist, twisted, and slammed his arm onto the bar. The knife clattered free. "Wrong move," I growled, shoving him back. He laughed, bitter. "You'll see, kid. You're dead already." The bar's back door burst open. Cops, 3 of them, guns drawn. Carver had sold me out. I dove behind the bar as bullets chewed the wood, glass shattering overhead. The reapers roared in, chaos erupting, fists, steel, gunfire. I grabbed Carver, dragged him through the melee, and out into the night. He wasn't talking yet, but he would. We hauled Carver to an old mill 10 miles out, a crumbling relic surrounded by pines. The reapers tied him to a chair, his wrists bleeding from the zip ties.
He glared at me, defiance in his eyes, but I saw the crack, fear creeping in. Hank handed me a crowbar.
"Your show," he said, stepping back. I didn't want to enjoy this, but part of me did. "Talk," I said, tapping the crowbar against my palm. "The frame job, the murder, who's pulling strings?" Carver spat blood on the floor. "You think I'm the top? You're a fool, Harrow." I swung, not hard, just enough to crack a rib. He grunted, doubling over. "Names," I pressed. He coughed, then muttered, "Daniels runs the street. Reese cooks the books. But the real boss? Chief Ramsey. He owns us all." Ramsey, the name hit like a punch. Mill Creek's golden boy, all smiles and press conferences. If he was dirty, this went higher than I'd thought. "Why me?" I asked. Carver smirked through the pain. "You saw Daniels kill that junkie. Wrong place, wrong time. Ramsey wanted you gone, quietly." Quietly. That word lit a fire in me. They'd picked the wrong guy to silence. I stepped back, letting the reapers take over. They weren't gentle. Punches, threats, the works. Carver spilled more. Stash houses, drop points, a safe in Ramsey's office with the real ledger. By the time he passed out, we had enough to gut their operation. Tank clapped my shoulder. "Next move's yours, brother." I nodded, mind racing. Ramsey was the head of the snake. Time to cut it off. Back at the warehouse we mapped it out. Ramsey's office was in the precinct, fortified, guarded, a damn fortress. But every castle has a weak spot. Carver's intel pointed to a delivery truck, unmarked, weekly, rolling in at 3 a.m. with cash and dope. That was our way in. The Reapers rigged a decoy truck, swapped plates, loaded it with gear. I'd drive, Tank and 3 others riding shotgun. We'd hit hard, get the safe, get out. The night was still, moon hidden behind clouds. I pulled on gloves, checked my pistol, full clip, safety off. The Reapers were wired, adrenaline pumping. Tank grinned, slapping a mag into his shotgun. "I like old times, eh?" he said. I smirked. "Better. This time I'm the one hunting." We rolled out at 2 a.m., a silent convoy cutting through the dark. The precinct loomed ahead, lights dim, skeleton crew on duty.
Showtime!
I eased the truck up to the loading bay, flashing forged papers at a sleepy guard. He waved us through, yawning. Inside we moved like ghosts, Reapers fanning out, taking down cameras, zip-tying anyone who blinked. I hit Ramsey's office, a plush corner suite with a view of the town he'd poisoned.
Ooh.
The safe was behind a painting, cliché, but effective. I cracked it with Carver's code, pulling out files, cash, a ledger thicker than the last. Checkmate. Then the alarm screamed. Someone had tripped it. Accident or betrayal, didn't matter. Boots pounded the halls, shouts echoing. I stuffed the ledger in my vest, drew my gun, and signaled Tank. "We're blown. Move." The Reapers rallied, and we fought our way out. Bullets flying, glass shattering, blood on the floor. I took a graze to the arm, ignored it. We hit the truck, peeled out, and left the precinct burning in our rear view. Step 2 was done. Step 3 was coming, and it'd be a reckoning. The truck rattled down a back road, suspension groaning under the weight of our haul and the tension in the air. Blood trickled from the graze on my arm, soaking into my sleeve, but I barely felt it. Adrenaline was a hell of a drug. Tank was in the passenger seat, shotgun across his lap, his eyes scanning the mirrors for tails. "We stirred the hive," he said, voice low. "They'll come hard now." I nodded, gripping the wheel tighter. Good, let them come. I wanted them desperate, sloppy, easier to break. We ditched the truck in a ravine 5 miles out, torching it to cover our tracks. The flames licked high, eating through the seats, the fake plates, the evidence of our raid. The Reapers scattered into the woods, regrouping at a safe house, an old hunting cabin buried deep in the pines. Inside, I spread the new ledger on a rickety table, pages lit by a flickering lantern. It was a gold mine. Bank accounts, offshore transfers, names of politicians in Ramsey's pocket. This wasn't just Mill Creek's rot, it was a web stretching far beyond. The radio crackled to life, a police scanner we'd lifted from the precinct. Daniel's voice cut through static, barking orders, roadblocks, APBs, my name spitting out like a curse. "Suspect armed and dangerous," he said. "Shoot on sight." I smirked. They'd made me a ghost story now, a shadow to hunt. Fine by me. I'd haunt them till they broke. Tank clapped my shoulder. "What's the play, Harrow?" I traced a finger over the ledger, stopping at Ramsey's name. "We take him down, publicly, leak this to the press, force his hand. He'll either run or fight. Either way, we'll be waiting." The Reapers grinned, a pack of wolves smelling blood. We spent the night prepping, copying files, rigging burners to send anonymous tips. By dawn, the first leak hit, a local news blog, screaming about corruption in Mill Creek PD. Step 3 was rolling, and Ramsey's world was starting to crack. The cabin was a hive of activity. Reapers hunched over laptops and maps, plotting our next strike. The news spread fast. By noon, TV stations were picking up the story. Grainy footage of the precinct raid looping on every channel. All my mugshot flashed too, labeled fugitive. I didn't care. Toasts Sal, let them see my face. Let them know who was coming. Ramsey didn't waste time. The scanner lit up with his voice, calm, controlled, but I heard the edge. "Contain this," he snapped. "Find Harrow, shut it down." He was circling the wagons, pulling his dirty cops tight. That meant he'd be at the station, locked down, surrounded, a fortress again. But I'd cracked it once. I'd do it again. We got a tip from our snitch. Ramsey was moving a stash that night, a panic play to bury evidence. A convoy, 2 vans, armed escort, heading to a airstrip outside town. Perfect. I called the Reapers in, laid out the ambush. "We hit them on the highway," I said, tapping a stretch of Route 12. "Narrow, no exits. Pin them in." Tank nodded, already loading shells. Messy or clean? He asked. Messy, I replied. They need to feel it. Dusk fell, and we rode out, 10 bikes strong, a rolling storm of steel and fury. The highway was a ribbon of black under a bruised sky, wind whipping past as we took position behind a rise. Headlights flared in the distance. 2 vans, flanked by a cruiser. Showtime. Tank signaled, and we roared down, cutting them off. Tires screeched, metal crunched as the lead van swerved. I aimed my bike at the cruiser, leapt off at the last second, and rolled as it slammed into the guardrail. Gunfire erupted, Reapers unloading, windows shattering. I dove behind a van, popped up, and put 2 rounds through a cop's chest. He dropped, blood pooling on asphalt. The escort fought back, but we were faster, hungrier. Tank ripped a driver from the second van, snapping his neck like a twig. Inside, crates, cash, dope, files. We torched the vans, left the cruiser burning. Ramsey's move was dead, and we had more fuel for the fire. Back at the cabin, we cracked open the crates. More ledgers, photos, a USB drive. I plugged it into a laptop, and the screen filled with footage, grainy security cams, Ramsey shaking hands with suits, deals going down in back rooms. Well, then I saw it, a face I knew. Carver, laughing with Ramsey, months before I'd rolled into town. My gut twisted. He hadn't just fallen in. He'd been in deep, playing me from the start. I slammed the laptop shut, rage clawing up my throat. Tank saw my face, raised an eyebrow. What's up? I tossed him the drive. Carver's a snake. He set me up before I even got here. Tank watched the clip, cursed low. Bastard still breathing. Want him dead? I shook my head. Not yet. He's leverage, Ramsey's weak link. We dragged Carver from the shed where we'd stashed him, still bruised from the mill. He smirked when he saw me, like he'd won something. Figured it out, huh? He rasped. I grabbed his collar, yanked him close. You sold me out. Why? He coughed, blood flecking his lips. Ramsey paid better than the army ever did. You were collateral. I dropped him, paced, mind racing. Carver wasn't just a traitor. He was a map to Ramsey's panic room, his escape plan. Where's he run when it's hot? I asked, pressing my boot to his chest. He wheezed, then spilled a bunker, old Cold War relic, under a farmhouse on County Road 6. I signaled Tank. We end this there. Tonight, the Reapers armed up, AR-15s, grenades, the heavy stuff. Carver stayed tied. He'd live till I said otherwise. We hit the road at midnight, a silent pack rolling through fog. The farmhouse loomed, dark, quiet, a trap waiting to spring. Ramsey thought he could hide. He was wrong. The farmhouse was a shell, peeling paint, sagging roof, but the real prize was below. We breached the barn, found the hatch under a stack of hay bales. It creaked open, revealing a steel ladder descending into dark. I went first, pistol drawn, the Reapers behind me. The air was thick, stale, smelling of rust and fear. Lights flickered on, motion sensors, and there it was. Ramsey's bunker, a concrete vault lined with monitors, weapons, a desk piled with cash. He was there, alone, pacing, a .45 in his hand. He spun as I stepped in, eyes wide, sweat beading on his forehead. Harrow, he spat. You're a dead man walking. I smirked, advancing slow. Funny, looks like you're the one cornered. He fired, wild, panicked, bullet ricocheting off the wall. I lunged, tackled him, drove my fist into his jaw. The gun skittered free. Tank and the others fanned out, securing the room. Ramsey thrashed, but I pinned him, knee on his chest. It's over, I said. Your empire's ash. He laughed, manic. You think this ends with me? They'll bury you too. I didn't care who they were. Not tonight. I zip-tied him, dragged him to his feet. The Reapers swept the bunker. More files, drives, enough to sink a dozen Ramseys. We hauled him up, left the bunker rigged with C4. The blast shook the earth as we rode out, a mushroom of fire lighting the night. Ramsey slumped in the sidecar, broken. The town would wake to chaos. His confession, the leaks, the truth. But I wasn't done. One last move. Dawn broke bloody red streaks across the sky. We took Ramsey to the town square, empty, quiet, the calm before the storm. The reapers tied him to a lamppost, the ledgers and drives stacked at his feet. I taped a sign to his chest, Mill Creek's finest. The press would find him, the people would see. Justice wasn't clean, but it was mine. Daniels and Reese were next. We tracked them to a safe house, a trailer park, guarded by a handful of loyalists. The reapers hit like a hurricane. Tires slashed, doors kicked in, gunfire tearing through thin walls. I found Daniels hiding in a closet, whimpering. "Please," he begged. I didn't answer, just dragged him out, let Tank finish it. Reese tried to run, caught a bullet in the leg, then spilled everything. Names, dates, deals. We left them alive, broken for the feds. The town erupted by noon. Protests, sirens, news vans clogging the streets. I watched from a hill, the reapers beside me, bikes idling. Ramsey's empire was rubble, his puppets cut loose. Carver, we dumped him at the precinct gate, alive, but useless. My buddy's killer was avenged, my name cleared in the chaos. I mounted my bike, nodded to Tank. "Ride's over," I said. He grinned. "Till the next one." We roared off, dust rising, the town shrinking behind us. Freedom tasted like exhaust and blood. And damn, it was sweet. The road stretched out like a black scar through the hills, endless and unforgiving. We'd been riding for hours, the reapers and I, putting miles between us and Mill Creek's smoking ruins. My hands ached on the grips, knuckles bruised from the night's work, but my mind wouldn't settle. Ramsey was down. Daniels and Reese were broken. The ledgers were out, yet something gnawed at me, a loose thread I couldn't shake. "They'll bury you too," Ramsey had said. Who the hell was they? We pulled into a truck stop at dusk, gravel lot, neon buzzing over a greasy diner. The reapers sprawled across booths, ordering burgers and beers, laughing like kids after a brawl. I stayed outside, leaning on my bike, staring at the horizon. Tank joined me, a bottle dangling from his hand. "You're brooding," he said, offering me a sip. I took it, the burn steadying me. "Job's done," I replied. "So why's it feel half-finished?" He shrugged. "You kicked the nest. Hornets don't just buzz off. They sting back." He was right. Ramsey wasn't the top. He was a cog, a loud one, but still just part of the machine. The ledger had names, big ones, a state senator, a DA, some corporate suit with a private jet. I'd burned the street level, but the penthouse was still standing. I handed the bottle back. "We're not done," I said. Tank grinned, all teeth. "Knew you'd say that." Inside, I spread the files we'd salvaged from the bunker, photos, bank records, a trail leading north to the city. Senator Hargrove's name kept popping up, tied to shell companies funding Ramsey's racket. If I wanted the head, he was it. The reapers listened as I laid it out. A bigger fight, higher stakes, no turning back. They didn't blink, loyal to the bone. We'd rest tonight, hit the road tomorrow. Step 3 wasn't over. It had just grown teeth. The city skyline loomed by noon the next day, a jagged mess of glass and steel. We rolled in quiet, bikes stashed in a garage owned by a reaper contact, a wiry mechanic named Spike who didn't ask questions.
He.
Himanix questions,
He.
trans, and his amu breer.
Why solely?
Hargrove's world was different from Mill Creek's. No dive bars or back alleys, just penthouses and private clubs. We'd need more than guns. We'd need leverage. Spike hacked into public records, pulling Hargrove's schedule, fundraisers, meetings, a gala that night at the Grand Meridian Hotel. Perfect. I cleaned up, shaved the scruff, swapped leather for a borrowed suit that pinched at the shoulders. Tank raised an eyebrow. "You look like a damn lawyer," he grunted. "Good," I said. "They won't see me coming." The gala was a circus, chandeliers dripping light, champagne flutes clinking, rich bastards in tuxes pretending they weren't vipers. I slipped in with a fake invite. Spike had forged, blending into the crowd. Hargrove was there, 60s, silver hair, shaking hands like he owned the room. He did, until tonight. I shadowed him, catching snippets. Mill Creek's handled, he murmured to a suit. Loose ends tied. Bullshit. I was the loose end, and I was unraveling fast. I lifted a keycard from a drunk aide, slipped into the hotel's service corridors. Hargrove's suite was on the 30th floor, locked tight, but the card got me in. Inside I found a laptop, files, a burner phone. Jackpot. I copied the drive, pocketed the phone, and was out before the ice melted in his drink downstairs. Back at the garage, Spike cracked the data, emails, payoffs, a meeting set for tomorrow with the DA. Hargrove wasn't just dirty, he was the architect. Time to crash his party. The meet was at a warehouse on the docks, industrial sprawl, cranes clawing the sky, the air thick with salt and diesel. Hargrove and the DA, a pinched-face woman named Ellis, thought it was a quiet cleanup. Bury Mill Creek, pin it on rogue elements. They didn't know I'd turned their trap into mine. The Reapers were in place, rooftops, shadows, bikes ready to roll. I wired up, a mic taped to my chest, the burner phone rigged to record. I walked in bold, hands up, the stolen files in a bag slung over my shoulder. Hargrove's eyes narrowed. Ellis flinched, recognition hitting hard. "You're a ghost," Hargrove said, voice smooth but tight. "Should have stayed dead." I dropped the bag, papers spilling. Ramsey sang before I broke him. "You're next." Ellis reached for her phone, but Tank stepped from the dark, shotgun leveled. "Don't," he growled. The Reapers closed in, a noose tightening. Hargrove laughed, cold. "You think this ends me? I've got judges, feds." I cut him off, tossing the USB drive at his feet. "And I've got proof. Recorded, live streamed. Your gala buddies are watching." His face drained white. Ellis lunged for the drive. I caught her wrist, twisted till she yelped. "Sit," I snapped. The Reapers zip-tied them, dragged them to a crate. I hit send on the burner. Every file, every word, blasting to newsrooms and dark web forums. The machine was cracking, loud and ugly. Gunfire split the night. Hargrove's security, late to the party. We hit back, a storm of lead and fury. I took a slug to the vest, stumbled, kept moving. Tank hauled Hargrove out, Ellis screaming behind. We torched the warehouse, rode out as it burned, their empire crumbling in the flames. The city would wake to war, us against the rest. Bring it on. Sunrise painted the highway gold, the Reapers' engines a steady growl under it. Hargrove and Ellis were dumped downtown. Bound, evidence piled beside them, gift wrapped for the feds. The news was chaos. Headlines screaming corruption, arrests rolling in, the web snapping thread by thread. My name was clear, my buddy avenged, but the fight wasn't over. Machines like that don't die easy. They rebuild, quieter, meaner. We stopped at a ridge overlooking the city, smoke still rising from the docks. Tank lit a cigarette, passed it over. "Worth it?" he asked. I exhaled, watching the glow fade. "Yeah, for now." The Reapers gathered, a brotherhood forged in blood and fire. Spike's radio crackled, new leads, whispers of another node in the web. East this time. I nodded. We ride. I mounted my bike, the weight of the last weeks settling into something solid, purpose maybe. Mill Creek was a spark. This was the blaze. The road ahead was long, dark, lined with enemies I hadn't met yet. Fine by me. I'd faced worse, survived worse. The Reapers revved up, a wall of sound and steel, and we tore off into the dawn. They'd framed me, hunted me, underestimated me. Now they'd fear me, and I'd keep coming, till the last cog broke. The wind hit hard, carrying the taste of freedom and fight. This wasn't the end, just the start. And damn, it felt good.